Hello foodies, this is Juan from In and with Carmen Food Tours. I was born and raised in Mexico City, and I like to think I know my way around it. Very often, I am asked about what to do and where to visit when coming to this huge city. So that's why I'm doing this video encompassing 4 unmissable neighborhoods in the majestic capital city of my beloved country. Mexico City is not only the capital of the country, but I think it's also the taco capital of the world. It's one of the oldest cities in America, founded by the indigenous Mexicas. It was originally built on an island in the Lake Texcoco, and it was originally named Mexico Tenochtitlan. Currently, the city covers a land area of over 2,000 square miles. This includes the state now called CDMX, formerly known as the Federal District, with its 16 mayoralties divided into 1,812 neighborhoods, plus 59 municipalities of the Estado de Mexico and 1 municipality of Hidalgo. On one of our food tours in Playa del Carmen, I was asked what would be the equivalent to Mexico City in the USA. The answer is that it does not exist, but let's try to imagine it. Take Washington, D.C. as the capital, where the federal government is located, but make it the size of LA, Dallas, and Houston together. And then add to that a concentration of almost 22 million inhabitants, and just finish by calling it America City. Sounds crazy, right? Well, such is the city where I grew up. Touring and enjoying Mexico City is a journey that can last up to 3 weeks or more, from discovering the peculiarities of each neighborhood to visiting more than 200 museums and art galleries, while making a few stops to enjoy the most delicious traditional Mexican food. Is not an easy task as you might think. The distances from one place to another may seem relatively short. Still, the chaotic traffic of this city usually turns a 30-minute car trip into a trip that can last up to 3 hours. No kidding. Many activities can be done on foot or by bicycle. But to get from the north to the south of the city, public transportation offers endless options, ranging from street taxis, more than 100 bus routes, 12 subway lines, and many other options. But take my advice. For no reason, use the subway between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. or between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. because these are peak hours. Unless of course you enjoy being underground with thousands of people who have no respect for personal space whatsoever. Each of these means of transportation reaches every hidden corner of the city. But to make your trip to Mexico City worth it, I think it's a better idea to split your vacation and visit the different most iconic neighborhoods and stay a few days in each of them to be able to appreciate them in more detail, since each one of them is different from the other. More than anything, this way you won't have to waste half of your time in traffic on the way to and from your hotel, and thus you can immerse yourself more in the magic of this city. The historic center of Mexico City is where the history of this vast country begins. What was previously known as Mexico Tenochtitlan was the seat of the government of the Mexica Empire. When walking through the streets of the historic center of Mexico City, you are taking a trip to the past of the history of Mexico, narrated in each of the buildings that surround it, where you can see different architectural styles such as Baroque, Renaissance, and Neoclassical that merge in perfect harmony. Behind me, I have Palacio Nacional, or the government's palace. It's one of the most important buildings, not only in Mexico City's historic center, but also in the whole country. During the conquest of the Spanish, Emperor Moctezuma's palace was sacked and destroyed, and its remains were used to build in the exact same place what is now known as the National Palace, from where once the Viceroyalty of New Spain was governed, and where the United Mexican States, which is the official name of Mexico, are governed to this day. The National Palace is one of the many buildings surrounding the Plaza de la Constitución, also known as El Zócalo. It is the home of the executive branch, where many presidents have lived. It has a free museum inside where the long history of Mexico is narrated, decorated with murals by Diego Rivera. A visit to Mexico is not complete without visiting an archaeological site of one of the many pre-Hispanic cultures. In Mexico City's downtown, you can find the Templo Mayor of Tenochtitlan. the center of the political and religious life of the Mexica society. It consisted of pyramids, monuments, and temples dedicated to Tlaloc, the god of water, and Huitzilopochtli, the god of war. Currently, apart from touring the vestiges of the Templo Mayor, you can visit a museum that preserves thousands of holy pieces of the Mexica gods and goddesses, stone figures, and objects from ancient civilizations. Behind me is the Palace of the Fine Arts, or Palacio de Bellas Artes, which is one of my favorite buildings in Mexico City's historic center. It is considered by many the most beautiful building in the city. For over 86 years, the Palace of the Fine Arts has remained the iconic venue of culture in Mexico for the spaces dedicated to different artistic disciplines such as theater, dance, opera, music, literature, and plastic arts, as well for its architectural majesty. Its construction dates back to the end of Porfirio Díaz's mandate, on the occasion of the celebration of the centenary of the beginning of Mexico's independence. The design was entrusted to the Italian architect Adamo Boari, who designed an eclectic building mixing Art Nouveau and Art Deco styles. Coyoacán is a neighborhood located south of the city that existed long before the Mexicas founded Mexico Tenochtitlan. In Coyoacán, place of the coyote owners, or place of coyotes, traces of the first Mesoamerican culture settled in the area were found, as it was an important urban center made up of residential areas and a complex religious and ceremonial epicenter. Later, Coyoacán would be where Hernán Cortés decided to settle and govern the first phases of the viceroyalty while the reconstruction of the devastated Mexica City was carried out. It is currently one of the most popular neighborhoods to visit in Mexico City, being a site with high concentration of cultural and tourist infrastructure. The square in the historic center of Coyoacán is mainly made up of two beautiful gardens, the Hidalgo Garden and the Centenario Garden, which adorn one of the most intellectual and bohemian neighborhoods of the Mexican capital, where numerous national and foreign public figures, artists, intellectuals, and politicians have had their residence, giving rise to large venues such as the Frida Kahlo Museum, the Alfredo Guatí Rojo National Watercolor Museum, and the Leon Trotsky House Museum. Visiting Coyoacán's public market is a must. Inside, you'll find a huge variety of authentic arts and crafts, fresh fruits and vegetables, traditional Mexican candy, piñatas, artisanal chocolate, delicious Mexican food, prime meat, freshly made tortillas, and of course, a big variety of nice, tasty, crunchy, edible bugs and insects such as chapulines, tarantulas, and scorpions. This is Vivero Coyoacán, or Coyoacán's Nursery Garden. It's a 39-hectare park in the middle of Coyoacán. Its main objective is to grow new plants and trees that are later used to reforest green areas within and in the surroundings of the city. It's a great place to take a morning run or a leisurely stroll, a picnic with the family, or just enjoy nature and feed the squirrels. They are quite friendly. From among the most popular and busiest neighborhoods in Mexico City in the Cuauhtémoc Mayoralty, La Condesa and La Roma are the epicenter of the best nightlife in Mexico City, hosting a few of the world's 51st bars with the latest cocktails like Handshake Speakeasy or Wallace Whiskey Bar, and many more Michelin-starred restaurants like Esquina Común and Rosetta, representing the most delicious of Mexican gastronomy. As you walk through the bohemian and ancient streets of these two neighborhoods, you will be able to taste the exquisite architectures that ranges from eclectic styles, Art Deco, and even Californian colonial, appearing along the many facades with neo-medieval and neo-Gothic features. Home to a lot of art galleries, vintage clothing stores, tattoo shops, all these around one of the most beautiful urban parks like Parque Mexico, where you can enjoy your afternoons with a quiet walk with your dog or take an ice cream at the famous Roxy ice cream shop. To enjoy an authentic local experience, it's best to spend a few days staying in the surrounding area, either in an old residence or in one of the most modern hotels around. Chapultepec and Reforma are surrounded by one of the largest city parks in Mexico. Chapultepec is essentially divided into 4 sections, with the Bosque de Chapultepec being the first section and the most visited park. The Chapultepec Forest is one of the best and largest nature reserves and recreational areas in Mexico City, measuring in total just over 686 hectares, twice the size of New York's Central Park. In the Chapultepec Forest, you can find endless activities such as walking around Chapultepec Lake and rowing a boat, visiting the botanical garden, walking through the children's areas, enjoying nature, and even cycling or running on the Chapultepec Forest circuit route. At the top of the Chapultepec Forest, you can see El Castillo de Chapultepec, or Chapultepec's Castle, one of the best museums in the city, built in the late colonial period. The palace was later occupied by Maximilian I of the House of Habsburg-Lorraine, an Austrian archduke who became the emperor of the Second Mexican Empire, and later served as the official residence of Mexican presidents until 1940. The castle is one of the places with the best views of the city, and it's surrounded by monuments, fountains, and other interesting spaces. It is a place with as much history as the museum within. Its permanent collections include paintings, documents, technology, clothing, and furniture from different periods of Mexican history. The castle is most famous for being the site of the Battle of Chapultepec during the Mexican-American War. In this battle, the cadets of the military school defended the castle to the death on September 13, 1847, and are currently known as the Boy Heroes of Chapultepec, who are honored in the monument of the Niños Héroes within the same forest. Mexico City Zoo is considered one of the most visited zoos in the world, receiving more than 5.5 million visitors a year, including students from all over the country. The Chapultepec Zoo logo is the pre-Hispanic representation of a jaguar. Some of the most important native species at the Chapultepec Zoo are the Mexican wolf, the ocelot, jaguar, and the axolotl. The Chapultepec Zoo is involved with various conservation projects. The entrance and many of the exhibits are free, but you can donate to support these projects. The National Museum of Anthropology was inaugurated on 1964, and for over 5 decades it has fulfilled the mission of researching, preserving, exhibiting, and disseminating the archaeological legacy of the peoples of Mesoamerica and the ethnic diversity of the country. This icon of the 20th century urban architecture was designed to be a space for reflection on the rich indigenous heritage of our multicultural nation. The Monument of Independence has guarded one of the 10 roundabouts on Paseo de la Reforma since the celebrations of the centenary of the Mexican independence in 1910. The monument is built on several steps, surrounded by bronze sculptures at the bottom representing law, war, justice, and peace. It has a bronze statue of a giant lion with a child from Rivas Mercado, which symbolizes the Mexican people. The column is 118 feet high, and inside, a staircase of 200 steps leads to a viewpoint. Above it all is a 22 feet, 7-ton statue of the Greek goddess of victory, Nike, designed and cast by a French-Italian artist, Enrique Alciati. The remains of the 14 heroes of the War of Independence are buried inside the monument. Mexico City is a city so ginormous that few Mexicans have managed to get to know it from end to end. Each path brings you closer to places that you never imagined existed here, surprising us with the folklore and authenticity that its citizens provide. A city full of history, beautiful architecture, green areas, and of course, the best in traditional Mexican food. Without a doubt, a must-see place on the list for those lovers of Mexican culture. So I hope all of this info is very useful for you the next time you come to my beloved hometown. This is Juan from Eating with Carmen Food Tours, and I'll see you on your next visit.